Good morning, everyone. Let's start with our daily market commentary. Now, what we see here is the daily chart for Nifty. So, what we have been saying now from last 7 commentaries, Nifty was remaining weak, and more importantly, 10,400 would basically be tested. Now, today, what we saw was basically a small gap down opening and then a followed up selling coming in, and now it has almost filled in the gap which we were talking about, right? So if the gap of 10,382 and 10,400 gets filled, that is not a good sign. All we need to see whether a similar downside will come in or not after this. So important for today's understanding on Nifty is pretty much clear. If the gap gets filled and does it go below the gap or not. Now on the weekly time frame, we already have seen that some of the crucial support levels are coming in. So 10,300 is the crucial support. Now when I see on the weekly chart, there is no gap over here which can be seen. So if you see over here, straight away a downfall can come in, which we have seen twice happening in the same juncture. So 10,300 is obviously there on the cards. Important for us to understand whether it will take some support or take some time to reach here or not. So clearly 10,300 is on the cards, and it can find some bounce back coming in. But now I think this 10,000 level is straight away there for Nifty and Bank Nifty. So Bank Nifty is turning weak, Nifty will turn weak, and now straight away support for Nifty on the weekly side straight away seems to be 10,100 mark. So there is no question mark of Nifty not reaching here in this expiry. Yes, the point is from the top of 10,600 for this expiry series, it has already corrected quite a lot. So there will be small bounce back, yes, but then after the bounce back, if it breaches 10,300, the free fall will take place towards this 10,100 mark. So structure remains weak for Nifty, and when we go in the daily side, obviously that gap support seems to be much visible over here, but not on the weekly front. When we go even inside, let's say on the hourly chart, so as we were speaking before as well, this gap was important, and if you see, it has basically come down today, opening gap down, and it has breached the gap. So it's trying to sustain this gap level, and if it sustains, a small pullback rally can come in tomorrow and day after. But technically, even if that rally comes in, now the important point to understand whether it can go up or not is the gap down opening which it did today. So today's gap down opening, that is yesterday's close 10,450, and today's high, which is 10,430. Now this becomes a crucial level where we need to understand if Nifty can go up higher or not. As we were explaining prior as well, multiple times the test of 10,520 took place, and then the falling comes in. Obviously the fall has been sharp in last couple of days or so. So there will be a small pullback which we can expect. Okay, so small pullback can be expected, but keeping in mind that yes, these upper levels of gap which is now being formed will act like a huge resistance, and then we need to see whether this can be supported or not, right? So that needs to be understood. Now coming back to Bank Nifty, so we were already bearish on Bank Nifty. Now what happens over here on Bank Nifty, if you see straight away on the daily chart, now today's opening was quite significant, because if I zoom in, the idea over here was this was a strong base for Bank Nifty, 24,780 kind of base, and it straight away it had opened down and it was trying to breach down, but we are seeing small recovery coming in Bank Nifty. Now on the weekly front also, this structure remains lot of weakness is seen in the structure. Now as we saw on Nifty, if you see over here, multiple supports have been taken around this zone of 24,800. Now if this gets breached, obviously there is a straight fall towards 24,000. So there is no confusion where 24,000 cannot come in. or understanding that a 700-800 points fall in Bank Nifty is quite possible. Now let us try to understand in this series itself what has happened. So in this series or last entire week where the new expiry started, try to understand Bank Nifty has already undergone a good amount of correction. So 25,800, it comes to 24,800. That clearly shows 1,000 point fall has already taken place in Bank Nifty. So if Bank Nifty zooms down, okay, and if it aggravates the fall to 24,000, that would be the biggest fall in Bank Nifty in 3 weeks time, right? 2,000 points getting wiped out is not a good sign. And what I see over here, if it comes down fast, the bounce will also be very, very fast, right? So we cannot rule out this particular level coming into place, 24,000 now. Things are becoming very clear, but the point is now everyone is thinking the same, okay? So will it go today, tomorrow, day after? Not possible, right? So what will happen, it might try to bounce back or so, and then you might find the fall coming in maybe at the end of the week, or maybe on Thursday or so. But not today or tomorrow itself. It will just open again, gap down and start going down unless there is a global event or S&P also losing its gain. So Bank Nifty clearly seems to be very weak on weekly chart, and now when we see on the hourly chart, this is what we were talking about. It did open down, it was zooming down in the first hour of the trade, and it is now trying to pull itself higher. Now what we need to understand is yesterday's close. Now if yesterday's close is being taken out, so this is the yesterday's close, and if Bank Nifty is still struggling to go above yesterday's close, so that is 24,900, 24,875 is the point. So only and only if it goes above yesterday's close, then only we can find it going higher. So one thing has been seen, if you see the selling was there for first 15 minutes, then the uptick started in Bank Nifty and it is now made a new high for the day. But the point for Bank Nifty to remain bullish or going above is 24,874, 875 kind of level where it was yesterday's close. So unless it does not go above yesterday's close, there is no change in the structure and you cannot see Bank Nifty zooming higher. So at least Bank Nifty is now providing support because of the last 45 minutes. As you can see, the green candles coming in, and Nifty is also getting support. So both are at a very crucial junctures, Nifty and Bank Nifty on daily as well as on weekly structures. The small pullback rallies will come. Try to understand in the next week or this week or so, it might pull back up, but the downfall cannot be avoided, right? So 10,100 for Nifty and 24,000 for Bank Nifty straight away is there on the cards. That we need to understand. Let's see today's gainer and losers. Now what I see from the gainer side, all the IT packs are over here. So Tech Mahindra, TCS, Infi, all these IT guys are over here. And obviously there are no large amount of gainers, but even you have SBI forming as a gaining side. So small bit of gains, but more predominantly is the IT pack, Tech Mahindra and TCS. Now losers, obviously opening gap down. Try to understand which are the losers. Now losers, as I see over here, the first loser is Arvind Pharma. So Arvind Pharma has been climbing up one way from last week or so, and what we see is straight away down for 4%, right? So that is there. And second, Hindalco. So Vedanta, Hindalco were doing good, but they were loser yesterday also, and today also we are finding yet another round of selling in Hindalco as well. So commodity pack is trying to go low. Tata Motor is down because of the US sales numbers, and they were not as per expectations and stuff. Obviously because of the trade practices of US pulling out some statements, they are trying. So these stocks where the export is on US can find some amount of pressure. Now what I see on the other side, there is no banks over here, right? So that is one good point, that banks have not undergone large amount of correction, and that is why you're finding Bank Nifty zooming up. Now let's take some of the banks to understand whether Bank Nifty can go on down or no. So first thing, as we have discussed prior as well, ICICI Bank. So ICICI Bank, what I see is from the last 3 days it has been opening gap down below 316 levels. So that was a very good support point, and it opened gap down and it just pulled itself down. Also, when we saw yesterday, 308 was also broken, and now it is below 308. So as we were talking prior as well, if I see on this below 308, when ICICI Bank can straight away come towards 290 or so. So 15 rupees downside or 15 tick of downside on ICICI Bank can obviously bring Bank Nifty down very fast. Okay, so 15 rupee downside is a huge in ICICI Bank. 5% down can obviously bring Bank Nifty down. So unless ICICI does not improve, I do not see Bank Nifty going up anywhere. Right now, why ICICI? If everything is dependent on ICICI, we need to understand, because when it is ICICI, so when I see on the ICICI, even on the daily chart or 4 hour chart, the story remains the same. Okay, it is still the important point where it is not being able to go above 308, and if it is sustaining below that level, then I am seeing 15 points down on ICICI Bank. Now ICICI remains weak, Bank Nifty will remain weak. Now let us go and see the other banks. So one is the IndusInd Bank. So these are the banks which have remained strong and have given support to Nifty. Now if I see over Bank Nifty, so if you see over here, even uh, IndusInd Bank is on the resistance side on the higher front. Okay, and the swift upside rally had taken place in IndusInd Bank, and the fall can also be fast. So one thing is pretty much clear: the IndusInd Bank and Kotak Bank both have undergone a good rally, and if any cracks come in Bank Nifty, they also start falling down, and they can fall down faster because the rise have also been good on the upswing. So ICICI, IndusInd, and Kotak can be the three guys can bring pressure on Bank Nifty. Now let's see HDFC Bank. Did they also have some upside or upside rally or so? Not at all. So what we saw on HDFC Bank is also pretty much clear. After a good upside, it opens gap down and now it goes down. Now as you see, HDFC Bank is coming at a good support level, 1850. So it will come there. It will take about a day or two because there has been a continuous selling over here. It will try to sustain these levels, and then finally, if HDFC Bank also breaks down of 1850 level, then you are seeing a greater downside on HDFC Bank as well. So you can find the next support for HDFC Bank coming around this 1810 level. So what I see for Bank Nifty, things are pretty much clear. Okay, HDFC Bank is coming at a support. ICICI Bank is below big level of support. IndusInd and Kotak Bank have already zoomed in, which can bring selling, one round of selling as well. Now when I see Axis Bank, so that's the last bank. Now the same story is seen in Axis Bank as we see in ICICI Bank. So what I see in Axis Bank as well, there has been a good support line of this 524 level. Now what I see over here, every day from last 2 days, it has been running down that level. More predominantly what I see on Axis Bank, the fall can be fast. Now what I am seeing over here for ICICI and for Axis Bank, the fall can be huge. Okay, and these two guys can bring Bank Nifty down. Then you have Kotak Mahindra also participating, and if the support line of HDFC is broken, I have no question mark. Bank Nifty undergoing a 1,000-point fall is like a cakewalk, right? So I am trying to pitch a structure for Bank Nifty where it is pretty much clear for me that there will be a good downside visibility for Bank Nifty. And now the problem over here is it cannot just find good buying coming in. Try to understand. And this is a good level of support for Bank Nifty. And if it breaches this, there is a free fall which will take place in Bank Nifty. Right, so that's pretty much clear. Obviously one bounce back is expected because the fall has been from continuous last 4 days or so. So last week, so this was a huge volatility. First 3 days after the expiry, it shooted up. After the expiry week got done, and then follow up selling coming into place. Now coming at a very good support level, it might find a small bounce back, but ultimately reaching to 24,000. Right, so 24,000 and the gap called as 24,200 is quite visible. So we can basically see it coming to those levels. Now trying to understand Nifty structure. So Nifty, as we are speaking, is basically losing its strength and it is coming under the support region of 10,350. Now for Nifty, we can also go and look at the heavyweight stocks. So let's go and look at Reliance, Maruti, ITC. So what we have seen on Reliance, the good upside has taken place on Reliance and now it opens today gap down. So Reliance will remain flat or it will see some pressure on the downside, obviously bringing it down to a good support level of 921. So Reliance seems to be weak as well. Now let's see ITC, whether the same can be seen in ITC also. So what I see on ITC, yes, it is clearly visible that the level of 260, it can be reached today itself in the trade. But important is to understand below this 260, ITC has good amount of leeway to reach to the levels of 253. So these are not good signs. As we see, the heavyweights are not up to the mark. Now, when we see Maruti, obviously it was a good upside swing which started in Maruti back of the numbers. Now you can see after this green candle, many people would have been bought over here. Now you see a small fall coming in to Maruti. Now important point for Maruti is clear this gap which it opened and it will sustain those gap 8762, but below that again Maruti can also come down to the level of 8450 to 8200. Obviously the genuine buying will come in around these levels, but current setup basically shows apart from IT no one is performing. So forget about pharma, forget about auto, and even the Reliance and ITC, they are not up to the mark. Now, in this structure, let us just go and try and understand some bear strategy. It's not that we are trying to place any strategy right now, but just trying to understand what can be the cost, because market opened straight away downside. Obviously, the cost would be higher, but just trying to see the premiums have gone up too much or not. So let's understand from Bank Nifty, because I see Bank Nifty getting stretched more compared to Nifty. Now this is 8th March expiry, so I am going out to 28th of March. Okay, so the month expiry is what we are trying to see. Now obviously we'll be looking at bear spread to understand how much downside is quite possible. Now what we see over here, so we can basically take three levels. Obviously when markets are so much down, going and making a bear spread does not make sense, but let's start tracking the bear spread. Okay, so we are taking, let's say, 24,500 put. So if I buy a put option with a strike of 24,500 and the current price of Bank Nifty is, current market price is 24,700. I think it's 700 around, yeah, 700, 775. So 24,800 is what we can write. Let's say 24,800. So 300 points down, we are buying a put option. So if I buy this, let's say we sell 24,000 put. Yeah. So buying 24,500, basically the cost of 24,500 if you see, put is 350 odd rupees. So just putting random fix round numbers for our calculations, and if you take 24,000 it is 210 bucks or so. So let's say 200 rupees. So the cost of the spread is basically coming out to be 150 bucks, right? So 150 rupees is the cost, so you cannot lose more than 150. Now your max upside is the difference between the two strike price K1 and K2, which is 24,500 and 24,000, which is 500. So the risk reward seems good, 1:3, but try to understand this 500 you can only get at the time of expiry, right? And there is lots of time left for the expiry. Now we want to reduce the cost further. Rather than paying 150, we can go for bear ratio spread. Okay, and then you have 350 over here, then you have 200 over here, and we are going out and seeing 23,500. Okay, so when I go and see 23,500, it's giving me 120 odd rupees. So now the cost of the spread, so we are buying one and selling two. Obviously it's very early to do that, but just trying to track. So 350 minus 200, which is nothing but 150, and minus 120 basically gives me 30 bucks. Okay, so this cost now has gone down to 30 rupees or 30 ticks compared to 150. Why? Because we sold one more put option. Now this 30 will also have a max upside of 500. Okay, but there is a risk involved. Okay, so if the bank nifty goes below 23,500, the losses starts coming in, and the break even for my this structured spread would be around 23,000. Okay, but the good point is you can be bearish with 30 bucks, right? So that's not too much, and the risk reward also is at least 1:10 or 1:20. But obviously these bear ratios comes with a risk because you're selling two contracts over here, so that is where you need to understand. Okay, so let's track these two spreads, and since we are bearish, my agenda over here is bank nifty from current price 24,800, it can bounce back towards 2900 or 25,000 or so, but the journey to 24,000 is for sure, right? So it is inevitable that it cannot reach 24,000. That is why we have taken this spread where my K2 is touching 24,000. So if you see two strikes that we have selected, K1 and K2, where K2 is touching 24,000. Even in the case of bear ratio, the case remains the same, where K2 is 24,000 and then it should stop, and that was the exact gap level where it will stop, right? And after that, even if it goes down, it is fine. After 23,500 my loss starts, and the break even is actually at 23,000. So I am taking a leeway of 2,000 points in bank nifty, then my loss will start, right? So that's a good spread to look into, and we can keep tracking. Now I'm not trying to put a spread in Nifty because Nifty has a downside to 10,300 points or so. I'm trying to look from Bank Nifty because I see structurally Bank Nifty remains way weak compared to Nifty, right? So try to track the spread, and we'll track this as well, maybe in alternate days or so, and try to see where these spreads are headed. Okay. Let's see again before we wind up what's happening on Nifty. So Nifty already 1% down. It has happened. Now what has happened over here with 1% downside, gap down, and it has zoomed down. 350 becomes an important zone. So let us see any revival coming in or not. And if it not, then things become very risky for Nifty. But trying to understand from the bounce which had happened last time from these levels, it cannot just breach today and go down. It can basically bounce back once from these levels. Even on Bank Nifty front, as we see, many times it has spiked down and it has zoomed up. It has spiked down and it has zoomed up. So here also you have seen the support coming in. Let us see a small bounce back is possible or not. Before we try to understand all this, we can also go and see how will S&P perform. Now why we are trying to see S&P in every market commentary, just to understand the bigger picture from US and so on. Now the last we spoke in the last commentary, important level was 2700, and it did breach 2700. Okay, and we had already said after reaching this 2700, you can see even S&P coming down swiftly to the lower levels. Now when I see S&P, I see 2625 straight away on the card. So 75 points downside, which basically means 3% downside on S&P 500 is quite possible. Now what I see yesterday, that's on Friday, what happened over here, it had opened gap down and it zoomed high. So today's structure of S&P will be very, very crucial because it has come to an important level of 2700, which was prior support, and it zoomed down. Now let us see whether this level gets intact or not. Right? If it is not kept intact of 2700 and it starts going down, all I am saying, the visit of 2625 is straight away there on the cards. So on the broader structure, when we have been tracking S&P, it's very, very weak, right? A small blip of upside was seen because of the support levels at these points. But what I see over here is now the real test of S&P around these levels of 2700 and 2720, and whether it can breach this level or whether it goes sideways for some time, and you can find a quick bounce back happening in Nifty and Bank Nifty, right? So let's see today also how it pans out, and then we can keep a track on them. Right? Thank you very much for joining in, and see you tomorrow.